Humane drug policy, I think, is really a central part of open society values, because it is about recognizing our humanity, recognizing that punishment is really not a way to address social problems, and instead we need to find ways that support people and help them live their best lives. My name is Kasia Malinowska-Sempruch. I work at Open Society Foundations as a director of our drug policy effort. When we talk about global drug policy, it is really important to make sure that everyone is at the table. Countries of Global South are particularly important to this discussion because this is where the so-called war on drugs has played out in most dramatic and most brutal ways. Whether you think of opium production in Asia, when you think about political instability in countries like Mexico, like Colombia, it's really important to recognize how Global North has driven those injustices in Global South, and not only address the multilateral settings that allow for those injustices to happen, but also make sure that people who have been most affected tell us how they think drug policy should look like for them to live best lives. What Open Society Foundations has done is work with countries, with local communities, with people who use drugs, to understand in depth what is required. So cannabis regulation in Global South is certainly one of the markers of success. A real discussion about ending death penalty in Asia, with some countries actually putting moratoria on it and changing laws. Increased number of countries that decide to decriminalize personal possession. Making sure that those who are in prisons for possession and small trafficking now are given an opportunity to have their personal records expunged. If you look at overdose prevention in the United States, the fact that the last 2 years actually brought down the number of overdoses from over 100,000 is actually an amazing success. And it's really, really important that naloxone is available and that people have access to opioid substitution treatment, because we have seen actually quite significant successes. In 2026, Commission on Narcotic Drugs will consider descheduling of coca leaf. That would be a fantastic win, because it actually will allow the poorest people of Latin America to benefit from the crop that they have been growing for centuries in ways that are legitimate rather than illegal. I came of age in communist Poland. My dad was a political prisoner before I was born. I deeply understand growing up and existing in a place where prison and the idea of imprisoning people as a solution is a norm, and also creates multi-generational complications that people live with. And so when I think about hundreds of thousands of people in the world imprisoned for drug-related offenses, it's hard not to think of my own history and what that meant for me. And I truly think that that is not the way to address a social problem.